Hello, welcome to Sonic Lab. We've got a bit of a special here. It's not my normal in-depth because, well, I'll explain why. But what we have here is the Roland Aira System-1 plug-out synthesizer. This is the last in the range of recent Aira products. As we understand, there may be more coming. Certainly more models for this System-1, because what's different about this synthesizer is it's got, as well as being, you know, a virtual analog synthesizer effectively, it's also got this what they call plug-out architecture. And plug-out architecture allows you to load in alternative synthesizer models into the hardware and switch between them. If you see here, I've got two switches. There's the System-1 and the plug-out. There is no plug-out here. Unfortunately, when this arrived, there was no plug-out available. Basically, here we have it. It's the same sort of angular TR kind of vibe that we've had with, it's more like the TR8. Each of the controls is backlit. Knobs, buttons, faders, everything. And apparently what this means is when you hit the plug out, if the plug out model doesn't have all of these controls, they will just dim or go out. I can't verify this because I haven't got one yet. But basically we've got this basic keyboard. It's a very slim travel keyboard. It's not, it kind of reminds me of, there was an old Edirol controller which is very slimline, so it's got about, you know, a tiny amount of travel, but you know, it feels okay. So back to the main model. One thing that's worth noticing is we haven't got traditional pitch and mod wheels. We've got this sort of scatter wheel and a pitch wheel. The outer part of the wheel gives you the pitch bend, and then there's a mod button as well, so it's kind of old school. Reminds me a little bit of some of the like Jupiter 6 or something, which had a bend and an actual mod button. So what is the System-1? Well, System-1 essentially is a mono synth, but it has up to 4 voices, so it's paraphonic effectively, so we can play in mono unison, but we can also play up to 4 notes through the same filter and envelope. Let's take a look at the actual architecture, what we've got here. Over here we've got an LFO, 2 oscillators, a mixer, a pitch envelope, which is a simple attack decay. Then we've got a filter envelope, and the filter, it's not a multi-mode filter, but it's 12 dB, 24 dB with a combined high-pass filter. And then we've got the amplitude section with ADSR, and then finally these little effects over here. So what I figured we'd do just for this one, rather than go into really sort of massive detail, is to look at the oscillators. So if I come to oscillator 1 and I switch my scope on, we can have a look at what the waves look like. I'm starting with the mixer at the 12 o'clock position, and we'll start with a simple sawtooth waveform. We've got 64 to 2. I'll go right up. I can't hear that, but I can see it. So I'm guessing it's making a sound, so we'll come back down again. And that's a very clean looking sawtooth. And then what we have is this colour button. Now colour essentially dials in waveform shaping. In this instance it changes from a single to a double saw. Now this parameter is modulatable. I'm doing it manually at the moment because it's set to manual. And it sounds pretty good. What I'm going to do here is also show you that if I'll take the volume down a bit and then turn the mixer up, and you can see that the waveform begins to clip. And that clipping is internal. That's not clipping on the input of my recording device. That's internal clipping, so we can drive stuff into the mixer. This is sort of fairly standard stuff now. Kind of pioneered, you know, I think the Moog Sub-Fatty and the multi-drive, all those sort of things. It's been, I'm sure lots of synthesizers have had it, but it's been sort of something that's become more and more of a feature. Right, so let's go on to another waveform, square wave. Take the drive level down, turn the volume up, change the colour affects the pulse width. Not a bad sounding wave. And we'll go up to the triangle wave. This is very clean looking. And now if I turn the colour, we get this kind of pinched vibe. So it's sort of, it's almost like a pulse width on some of these waves. Some interesting options there. And again, we drive that, we get more tonal possibilities. Let's take that back down again. So next one up is the multi-saw. This doesn't look much like a saw, but it's kind of, it's multiple waves, and we can dial it in, and it becomes more and more detuned. So let's now go into the multi-square. Again, not much like a square. It has square tonal characteristics, and then we dial in the mod, it sort of multiplies the detune between the waves, so we end up with kind of what sounds like, you know, maybe 3 waves or something like that. We drive that, we can get more this sort of, I guess, dare I say it, that sort of drum and bass kind of distorted, bit crushed almost. And that's sort of internal to the oscillator, so that's pretty cool. Finally, we've got the multi triangle wave. That looks most like a triangle, but then when we start to multi, it's sort of like, maybe that starts to sound a bit more interesting when we drive that as well. So there we've got your basic waveforms. In addition, we've also got noise, pink and white noise. Nice to have that. Plus, we've also got a sub-octave. Take that down. And interestingly, the sub-octave in this, while giving us the -1, -2, is actually a triangle wave, which is unusual. Most other synthesizers seem to be offering square at the moment, so it's nice there's something a bit different there. One other thing that was really cool is the ability to shape, if we come to the amplitude section as well as the crusher, we've got this tone control, which effectively takes the basic sound of the synthesizer and can either fizz it up, if we look at the scope here, or darken it down. And it really dramatically changes the tonal characteristics of the synth, kind of pulling it more in a sort of vintage darker or a sort of more buzzy, brighter, sort of modern sound, which I quite like. Additionally, while we're on here, we've also got this bit crush, which is quite extreme. Would have been nice perhaps to be able to have like a 12 o'clock position, the first half more saturated kind of drive sound, and then maybe the second half would be more bit crush with a centre dent in the middle. Just me, I mean, I guess if it's DSP you can do pretty much whatever you want, so it would have been nice to have that, but we haven't. So Oscillator 2 is actually very similar. It allows you to tune it only plus or minus a semitone, which is not what I was expecting. I thought it might be nicer to be able to pitch this up kind of, you know, to plus or minus an octave so we could get some tune things. I was a bit surprised at that, but we've got the ability to ring modulate, and also there's a sync function which allows us to create that classic sync tone. But we're not able to do massively wide sweeps because of that tune feature, which I don't really understand why they've made that. I mean, maybe there's a way of changing that in a software revision, because it would have been great to be able to tune that second oscillator much wider. So obviously the next part to look at is the filter. Filter is another main characteristic of any analog or virtual analog, so let's take a look at that. So the filter has a 12 dB slope and a 24 dB slope, plus it's also got this, it's a low pass filter, no multi-mode going on. There's also a high pass cutoff here as well, which is really almost like a mixer channel. Doesn't really do anything, doesn't interact with the resonance in any way. It's just literally almost like an EQ function. So let's take a listen. We've got a sawtooth, at 12 o'clock going into the filter. It's quite pleasant. Let's try that 24 dB. Try the drive up a bit from the mixer. You can hear there's a bit of smudge coming in. Seems like a very smooth sweep. I can't hear any stepping, but we'll listen to that with some more resonance on it. Let's bring some, we'll go into, take that back down again. So 50% resonance, give it a sweep. This is 12 dB. 75% resonance. You can hear it's a very smooth sweep. 100% resonance. In fact, we can take the level down, dial in the key, and we can play the filter, no problem. You can have a look, so let's see what sounds like pretty much. Looks like, yeah, kind of more or less a sine wave there as well. Let's try the same on the 24 dB. Whoops. 50% resonance. 75% resonance. Ooh, a bit more screechy on the resonance there. If we drive it a bit harder with the resonance into it. So perhaps not the most characterful filter, but yeah, it's fine, nice and smooth. One thing I would mention is the filter modulation depth is fine on the envelope, so we can get it to open right up and then close down on the envelope, but not on the LFO for some reason. If I show you here, I've got a square wave here. You can hear what the filter sounds like open. Right, now I'm going to modulate the filter 100%. I'm dialing back the filter, yet I've got 100% modulation on it. It's not opening up to the full amount, which seems a bit odd. So if you think what I'm trying to do is get the LFO to open to its maximum amount and then down again, but it doesn't. It only seems to open kind of 30% up from where it might be set on the front panel, which seems a bit peculiar. I can think of many instances when I would want full filter LFO depth, you know, for reasons. While we're on the LFO, let's see how far it goes up into the audio range. Not terribly high. I mean, nice to maybe have a faster LFO there so we could get audio, because it seems to be a lot of synthesizers now are really exploiting these audio rate modulation paths so we can get much more interesting and unusual tones. Not so on the System-1 as far as I can tell, but I guess as this is all DSP, these are all things that can be changed and tweaked. I mean, there's no reason why it couldn't be changed. So let's just dial up a bit of poly action. I've been in mono mode, I've got unison, I switched off, now I'm going to be in poly mode. I've got the multi-wave sawtooth. I only get 4 notes, and again, there's no notes here. You will notice also there's no velocity sensitivity going on here. It's just basically on or off on the keyboard. Now this is probably a good time to introduce the effect. If I come over here, you can see right at the end of the keyboard, we've got the effects generator. So just dial in some reverb. As far as I can tell, this is fixed. I mean, there may be ways to edit this via USB, but we're just looking at the basic synthesizer blocks. With the reverb up on full, would have been nice to maybe have a bit more of it so we could get extreme. This is still quite polite really. I mean, you might think that it'd be nice, but I guess with a one knob function, we're probably changing multiple effects at the same, multiple parameters at the same time. So now if I take the reverb down and I bring the delay up, Bottom is time, top is mix. Sounds like about a second. Doesn't sound like we can go right up into the sort of extreme areas of feedback because that's full there and full there, so we can't get really high up. But again, this is all front panel stuff. Be nice to be able to modulate that delay. That might be possible over MIDI. Right, that's about it for this part of it. I'm not going to go and review the entire thing because, as I say, we haven't got the plug out technology. There are other aspects to this that we'll look at. Obviously there's the USB audio and the MIDI side of it that we haven't even touched upon, but for now I hope you've enjoyed that, a quick sort of overview of the System-1. Stay tuned and we'll have some more coming soon. Thanks for watching, and oh yes, don't forget, subscribe. There will be a button appearing and you should really click on it. If you don't subscribe to us, we get lots and lots of video content, so the only way to stay in touch really, apart from visiting the site, is to subscribe to us on YouTube. Please do.